Welcome back, everyone, to Pod of Thrones. I'm Jeff.
I'm Jennifer.
We almost didn't make it. We almost missed a week, babe.
Almost,
we're
right.
recording this on a Friday.
But we did it.
Been kind of a long week. You know,
sorry about that.
You'd think that, like, the kids being on spring break would make things easier to just do whatever we want, but no.
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 It's much work. Kind of. I don't know.
Well, it's like, you know, they get to stay up later, so...
Right. So we're watching more fun things with them.
Yeah.
We're spending our quality time with our children.
Right. Which mostly involves watching TV, sometimes playing video games. It's not like we can leave the house.
Right. You've been playing board games.
Just a couple. Just in case someone's listening to this in the future. We are recording this in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic and the lockdown thereof, at least here in California.
Right.
I know every state's on kind of a different timetable. We don't live in like Florida or Georgia or any of the states where they're just like, wait, what's a virus?
You never told me it could be spread before you showed your symptoms. I'm sorry. That was somehow racist or something. But that's...
I don't know, racist against a shitheel like Brian Kemp. He's an asshole. He stole the election in the first place just to become governor in 2016. Really did some textbook voter suppression against the people of Georgia.
Disgusting.
Mostly the black people of Georgia. And now, go figure, he's a monster of a governor. What a surprise.
Right.
Sorry to any listeners we have in Georgia, but if you actually listen to us and you're in Georgia, you're probably not offended by us calling Brian Kemp a shitheel, and we'd love to talk to you, so tell us. But I don't know if we have any listeners in Georgia. This could be interesting. If you're in Georgia, let me know. Anyway, so the coronavirus is happening, so we're already quarantined, and then it's spring break on top of that. So the kids really have nothing to do.
I wonder what spring break is like in Florida right now.
Well, I think they finally started shutting things down.
Well, did you see that one with the border? I think we were watching whatever that was together. There was like a border of Florida County.
One of the late night shows. Yeah, like different. So yeah, because the governor wouldn't take action in Florida.
Right. He said he's going to leave it.
Who's the governor in Florida now? Is that Ron DeSantis? I think it is.
I don't know.
Another piece of shit. He wouldn't take action, but some individual counties took action. So what did we see, babe? On some late
so
night
there
show?
was like a line in the sand on the beaches where there were 1 million people on one side and 0 people on the other.
Right.
It's really funny.
Really funny. And, you know, from seeing it from afar, funny because like history will go like, wow, look at these crazy assholes. But
that's how society evolves.
Well, yes, but also so as we started hitting, as things started ramping up towards this lockdown, Florida was starting its spring break season and they weren't taking any action. So you had a lot of people that should be like, oh, I don't want this virus. But a lot of them are young people. At first, we didn't think that the coronavirus would hurt you if you're young.
Well,
which turned out not really to be true. So they're just like, fuck it, I don't care about some virus. And there was huge parties on the beaches in Florida.
Right.
And some of that is tapering off now. But I think, you know, the pictures we're seeing are probably still some of that. Or just people are like, fuck it, I want to go to the beach because this is America and you can't take our freedom away. And my freedom says go to the beach, motherfucker. You want to fight about it?
Yeah, just to flip off who knows.
Yeah.
People that are trying to keep them safe. Fuck you.
And so we could say...
That's like kids. That's like our kids. We're just trying to help you. Fuck you.
Right. Well, your daughter today, you were trying to talk to her from downstairs and she couldn't hear you. And I was going upstairs. So I knocked on her door and I poked my head in and she has her headphones on, which is why she never heard you say anything. And I just tried to say just one more time because I just want to get the message through. If you wear headphones all the time, even when you're in your bedroom and alone, it's going to affect your hearing long term. I'm just like, you're going to damage your hearing. And she's just like, well, I'm going to do it anyway. That was her answer to me. Well, I'm going to do it anyway. So I left.
Right. I mean, what are you going to do? I could take her headphones away from her.
Yeah, I would love that.
But I don't know. It's not a conversation I wish to have right now.
No, that's fine. But that's the attitude, right? It's like, well, fuck this virus. I don't care. I'm going to go to the beach. Now, you said society will evolve this way, and I don't know if you meant like survival of the fittest, but that was what I
survival of the smartest.
Well,
that's how humans have evolved all the time, how they kept alive, because our brains stay away from dangerous things.
Except when those people are traveling. So anyone that went to Florida for spring break could wind up back here in California. Right. With us or something. Right. Or any other state.
Like if our kids were in college or whatever and gone to Florida for spring break and then came back here, we'd be screwed.
Right. And so normally, like, I'm all in favor of survival of the fittest. If you want to be an idiot and get yourself killed,
just don't spread it.
100% for that. I have no problems with that whatsoever. But yeah, when it's this, and it seems to be fairly easily transmissible. Which is making me hesitate when anything from going to the store to getting some takeout for dinner. I'm like,
right, I know.
I better sanitize my hands, make sure I wash.
And then you think, well, what's the point? All these people have touched it anyway.
Well, that's why we could be in trouble.
We could be.
But we can't like not go to the grocery store. And what are you going to do? Have someone deliver it? The people that are delivering stuff are probably the most at risk right now.
Right, because they're delivering to a bunch of people.
Right. Going up to all sorts of different doorsteps and ringing doorbells. And they should probably stop ringing doorbells. That's a touch that you really shouldn't need to make.
It's scary. I went to the grocery store yesterday and I put on the gloves and the mask.
Good.
And as you're checking out, you're like, okay, how am I going to do this? I take one glove off. I leave one glove on for the pushing in my PIN number because I'm paying by card. And I need one glove to touch my card, but I don't want a dirty glove to touch my card. I'm like, okay, so I do my card with my ungloved hand and I do the PIN with my gloved hand. And then I'm like, now what do? I have to carry all these groceries into the cart. I can't do all of that with one hand. So now I've got to touch the bags with the clean hand because I already threw away my other glove. There was no way I could have put it back on without it touching me. So it's crazy.
Yep. We're taking risks. There's no way to not take a risk.
And then I get the hand sanitizer and then I think, well, I just touched the bottle to close it when I had just touched.
Yep, I thought about that too.
Jesus.
Well, like
stressful.
I went through a drive-through today to get us a little feel better treat, and I'm like handing the card to the person, and the person's wearing gloves and a mask, which is great. But I am still thinking about, well, that person has gloves on, which means they probably won't get sick, but they just touched the person in front of me, their card, and the card of the person before that and that and that. So I got to be careful, like how I touch this card. And
right. You should have alcohol.
I did alcohol my wallet and my main card the other day.
All over each dollar bill we're going to be wiping with alcohol.
Oh, money has always been disgusting.
I know.
I got some money out of the ATM the other day, and I touched it very gingerly, and then I put it in like my shirt pocket and got back in the car and pulled out the hand sanitizer, and then just,
Yep.
Just didn't want to have any prolonged contact with the money because it's always been gross, and now not a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on.
If anyone has any fun stories, anything interesting happening, if you have been affected by the coronavirus, let us know. That would be interesting to talk about because even though this is primarily a pop culture show, real life happens.
Of course it does. So, yeah. Happens to us.
Yeah, sure as hell does.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I should share that.
Oh, go ahead, babe.
Well, I was laid off because of the virus, and so here I am. It was just last Friday, so I'm still kind of in shock.
Yeah. And we should be okay with unemployment and whatnots until hopefully companies start hiring again, but there is a big question in the air of how long it's going to be before the job market starts to open up, because even if businesses start sort of returning to normal over the next month or two, it's going to take significantly longer before everyone starts to feel stable enough to start hiring. Largely because, and let's be clear about this, if we all go back to our offices, those of us with offices, in a month or two, the virus will spread more.
Mm-hmm.
that is guaranteed. We're not defeating the virus by staying home for a month or 2 months.
Right. What's crazy is, so they say when you're on the down curve, like when you're way down and then you start sending people back, why doesn't that, I mean, it only takes one person to spread it. Why?
That's how it all starts.
Right. Why is it okay if there's even just like 100 cases?
Well, because we can't stay inside forever, I guess.
I know, but...
And so the goal is the flattening of the curve so we don't overwhelm our already shit-tastic medical system. Right. Our medical system was not made for a worldwide pandemic. It was made for profit. I hate it so much. So we're trying not to overwhelm it. And we know, because it's just the fact of life, is that once we flatten the curve and then we start being normal again, it's going to ramp right back up. And then maybe we'll have to flatten the curve again and go back to another couple months of isolation. Really hard to say, but this is going to be a problem probably until they develop the vaccine. Until they develop an actual vaccine for this, which is 12 to 18 months, most likely. This is what we just have to deal with. It's going to be a roller coaster.
It's crazy that they can create a vaccine so quickly for something brand new, although it is along the strains of the corona. I don't know if there's vaccines.
Right.
Well,
it's
there
a
are
virus
vaccines for that.
We've seen before. This is just one coronavirus.
But they still haven't created something for cancer or, well, they're creating things for cancer.
Well, there's a reason for that.
I suppose.
I mean, there's treatments for cancer, but you can't vaccinate against cancer. You can vaccinate against...
I know. It's an overgrowth of... But you would think they would come up with something.
Well, not cervical cancer. Well, cervical cancer.
Right. HPV,
which can also cause penile cancer.
Penile.
Let's not forget that.
That's a funny word.
But they have a vaccine against that because it's a virus that damages cells, and the damage to those cells can give you cancer. So there is that. But most cancers, I don't think, are caused by viruses. So I can't have a vaccine for that.
Okay, let's talk about what we came here to talk about.
I forgot what
Westworld.
What are we doing? Oh,
we watched Westworld.
Okay, now there is one pop culture thing I did want to bring up before we talk about Westworld, because this is Pod of Thrones. So if there's Game of Thrones news, I feel like we should address it. If my phone would unlock, stupid phone. So there is a new Game of Thrones game that I think we might have talked about a really long time ago, or at least we did between us, because there was some announcement about it or something. There have been a couple different Game of Thrones mobile games before. A new one just came out called Game of Thrones Beyond the Wall. And it was billed as a turn-based role-playing game, which is very exciting for me. That's the type of game I like. You're more an action role-playing game, Skyrim kind of stuff. I like them both in the right circumstances. A turn-based role-playing game, and what they promised was, a new, official storyline. Okay. And that was why it seemed like it might be worth talking about. So it just came out within the last week. I have downloaded it. I have not started it up yet.
Why not?
Well, here's why. Because I was worried at the time, what kind of game is this going to be? Is this going to be a real game? ? Or is this going to be a mobile game that is designed with those psychological traps we know and hate to just try to steal all the money? And you can tell... pro tip from someone that goes through mobile games like they're Tic Tacs. If you look at the App Store and it says there's in-app purchases, go see what kind of purchases those are. If it's just a purchase to remove ads or unlock an extra chapter or something, it might be a really good game worth trying. If it's, if there's purchases of chest of treasure and those purchases go up to $99.99 or higher, it's probably going to be a garbage game that's not really worth your time. That's what this is.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. So I'm hesitant to start it up because I can pretty much guarantee it's going to be a game where you try to collect as many Game of Thrones heroes as possible, and you have to collect little fragments of heroes so that you can make them more powerful if you get enough fragments, and they'll go through these different star levels and then power levels.
I get it.
Oh God, it's going to drive me crazy. But I'd like to know what the storyline is. If it is official, maybe it would be something interesting. So I am going to try to play it. I'm not going to spend $100 on it. Probably $0. But
good luck.
But I will report back here what the story is. Oh, speaking of reporting back here, remember last week I was having a rant about Volkswagen or whatever with my phone right next to my face? Never got those ads.
Didn't get Volkswagen.
I never got Volkswagen ads, but that doesn't mean my phone isn't listening to everything I say and trying to turn it into ads. It could just mean that Volkswagen isn't participating in something like that right now. But I did take a couple screenshots. The most noteworthy one actually relates to our playing of video games. We tried out Elder Scrolls Online, which as of this moment still has 3 or 4 days, depending on when you download this, of free play. So Elder Scrolls Online is based on Skyrim and all those other games we love. What'd you think of it? Quick review.
Well, the characters are, okay, so everything is very difficult. Very, like, the menus and stuff like that were really hard for me to get. They're very expansive. It's just too much for me. But then it's not like Skyrim where you go on these cool quests and the story evolves and you're like doing all kinds of stuff. But instead, you're just like going from person to person and occasionally fighting some things. But it doesn't feel like a quest, like a good story, you know?
It kind of feels like you're on a theme park ride. Like you're on a rail, just sort of moving along and watching a story go by.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I felt with it.
Yes. I did not like it. I did not enjoy it. It was too monotonous for me.
Yeah. There were things about the system that I think would be great to be incorporated into the actual Elder Scrolls games, but
I don't like
it wasn't
all
a
that.
Great MMO.
I know what you like. You like all the details.
The skill evolutions and the details and planning. Yeah, I know.
Just make it simple so I can see it quickly and move on because these games take long enough.
But wouldn't it be something if combat was a little more interesting?
I like the combat that I have in Skyrim.
All right, fine.
I like the combat that we have in Fallout. I don't like it to be so complex that it takes me too much time to deal with it.
Well, sure. And Fallout 76, the other big, massively multiplayer game from Bethesda, seems to have done that pretty well.
They did. They cleaned it and it's nice and tidy. And
it's very similar to the Fallout 4 experience.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Why can't they make everything the same? Why couldn't they make Elder Scrolls the same as...
'Cause Elder Scrolls came out years ago.
Okay,
so it's just a different evolution path.
They
anyway.
Take things that are better.
The reason I mention all this, to go back to Rehoboam, or Gugaplazon, which will take over our universe. This is all Westworld related, people. So we're playing Elder Scrolls Online, and we ran into a treasure chest, and it was locked, and we had to figure out how to pick the lock, which was a different system than what we were used to from Skyrim and Fallout 76. They all have the same lock-picking system. And this was something completely different. And we were frustrated trying to figure it out, and eventually we did, but somewhere in the middle of us trying to figure out how to pick a lock a couple times that evening, I specifically said out loud, with my phone sitting on the couch next to me, I wish there was some kind of lock-picking tutorial. The goddamn next day, I am scrolling through Facebook of all things, which is nothing but my person. Like, I'm on Elder Scrolls Online. No one knows who I am. Facebook knows who I am. And somehow, as I'm scrolling through Facebook, I get a targeted ad for Lockpick Education Set. Develop children's minds and discover the principles and fun of learning from play. Free shipping. I'm not going to tell you the company name because fuck them and fuck Facebook, but helps you know the mechanism of the locks.
Why is that bad? Why don't you like that? They're just giving you what you asked for.
If I go to Google and I search for guide to lockpicking, I will not be angry or bitter.
But you said yes. You said yes to the cookies.
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
No. So let's
You don't think you checked a box somewhere that said we can use...
Let's make the distinction clear. I did not go to Google and look for a tutorial on lockpicking. That would make sense. Even if it's kind of intrusive, it would make sense to me. But this is a new iPhone. I got it from work. I've switched over from Android to iPhone, so it's totally new platform. And all throughout the way, I said, do not send information to developers. I have not activated Siri. I have never used voice activation for anything except dictating text messages. And that requires an explicit push of a button. I do not use this in any as a
voice recorder,
a personal assistant.
Right.
I don't talk to it. It's listening to everything I say all the time anyway, even though that feature is disabled, and it is clearly using that information against me.
Well, you should sue somebody then.
I should.
You should.
It's actually a good idea. There should be some kind of class action lawsuit because Googaplazon is not a joke. Like, I'm not kidding, even though it's kind of funny to say it. But Rehoboam from Westworld is a real thing. They're going to try to control our lives just through knowing. They're making dossiers on all of us. It's not a tinfoil hat thing. It's reality, and I can see proof of it all the time.
I don't really care. Who cares? Okay. What are they going to do with the information?
I don't know yet.
Nothing.
Well, we don't know what Rehoboam's doing, do we? Like,
no, we'll find out.
But there's more. I mean, there's more to it than just targeted ads. Like, once they know everything about us, they can shape our lives. Like, that's the plot of Westworld,
okay,
right? Like, that's Caleb's thing. Is like decisions were made for Caleb. He was not going to marry. He was not going to get a better job because the system was rigged, because it knew everything about him and it didn't consider him to be the right match for those things.
It's pretty fucked up.
That could happen.
I guess.
That's not impossible. I wouldn't even say it's improbable.
Right. It's probably, look who's in office right now. It's definitely the way we're going.
Right. We're heading towards authoritarianism. The whole world is. And the reason we're heading towards authoritarianism on a political level is because it's easy. That's what a lot of it comes down to. Some of it is people being manipulated, but the whole problem with democracy is that you have to actively participate in it, or you start to this shit happens.
Right. We don't have enough people voting.
And so authoritarianism is the end result of that, of people not giving a shit enough to protect their own rights.
Yep.
So
you're right.
The technocracy is going to be the natural extension of that.
Okay, let's go. Are we going to talk
We've almost recorded a full podcast already.
Yeah. I keep trying to get back on track.
Fudge you. You want to talk about Westworld? Is that what you want?
Yes.
Fine. This episode's called The Mother of Exiles.
The Mother of Exiles.
The end. Was that a Game of Thrones reference too?
No. Maybe. I don't know.
Actually, come to think, are they talking about Dolores? Is she the Mother of Exiles? Because she's kind of the mother of herself.
I think so. She's the Mother of Exiles, yes.
Okay. Hey, she's a blonde, very pretty girl that was basically a slave and then has risen to power and is now one of the most powerful beings on the planet. Mm-hmm. She doesn't have dragons, but she has minions.
Yep.
It's kind of the same story. And she might destroy humanity and rain fire and blood down.
Okay. Let's talk about it.
All right. So anyway, this episode, as someone who I was taking notes throughout, and it was a very frustrating episode to take notes.
They're all frustrating.
No, this one was worse than most. Just because I draw like a little squiggly line every time the scene changes to a different focus of character. Mm-hmm. And this has more squiggly lines than any other episode. So I've separated the plots out like I do in an effort to try to organize it. So we're going to talk about Maeve's journey. We're going to talk about Dolores and Bernard and their whole thing. And then we'll also talk about William, the old man in black or white. So let's start with Maeve. Her storyline was fairly easy to follow. Mm-hmm. So the first time we see Maeve, she's having dinner, I guess, sort of with that Sirach guy.
Right.
And they're in Singapore, which I hadn't connected all the dots at first, but it turns out that's pretty important. And here's something we learned about the world. We learned elephants are gone last episode. No more elephants. And in this episode, we learned something about Paris. What did you make of that?
Well, Paris is gone.
Was it
there was a nuclear bomb or something?
Was it? You think it was a bomb or like something melted down or I don't know. Paris is destroyed.
Well, okay, so there's a bunch of guys in radiation suits out there trying to get him. So
like beckoning,
I don't think they would be out there trying to fetch a kid if it had just happened. I don't know.
Yeah, it was. That's all kind of weird. Maybe it's like the memory of a child kind of being distorted because he's like playing out in the countryside outside of Paris. You could see Paris from a distance. And yet Paris is suddenly gone, and there's smoke and fire. And then, yeah, there's these guys in protective gear beckoning to these two children that are running through a field. If it was a nuclear bomb, they probably would have fried at that distance.
Have we heard what's happened to the world at all?
No, they're just giving us glimpses.
Do we know?
I don't know. I feel like it might have come up once or twice, but I don't have a clear bearing on the year. But we've never known much. In the first 2 seasons, we kind of learned that like humanity's cured all diseases and people are kind of bored, and that's how they're getting decadent and winding up at Westworld. But it kind of turns out that that's just the rich people. There's still plenty of room for an underclass. So we're learning little bits. Elephants are dead. There must have been some climate issues, I imagine, to kill off whole populations of animals. Paris is destroyed from something. We don't know if it's war or something else yet.
Maybe it's COVID-19.
Could be COVID-19. Although would that set a city on fire?
I don't know. People
not.
looting.
Anyway, so Paris is gone. We learned that from Serac. He is French. So he said he's waited a long time for Dolores and Maeve and the others to emerge, which is also interesting. Why would he be waiting for that? Did he help impregnate the code with something bad? I thought that was kind of all Ford's doing. Or maybe he just knew what Ford was doing and figured eventually there would be an uprising. I don't know.
Well, does he have, so he was waiting, is he who was waiting for the data?
Serac?
Yeah. Or was it the board members?
The board members were waiting for the data, but since Serac had a mole, Charlotte, inside the system, he was going to get the data.
Right, so
he's probably known a lot of what's going on the whole time.
Right.
Yeah. So he says his project that he's been working on, he doesn't say Rehoboam out loud because I'm sure Maeve's reaction would just be like, what? But he's talking about his project. He worked really hard, but it's incomplete, and basically says Delos did something better, but did it in a theme park by mapping out the human mind.
Now, they did say Rehoboam once, and that's not exactly how they said it, but I don't really remember. I just remember thinking, we're all a little off, but we're pretty close.
I'm trying to get away from saying rumba-bum-bum-bum.
I think it's Rehoboam.
Rehoboam.
Maybe it's Roboam.
There's got to be an explanation for that name.
I'm sure.
I'm sure it's just like Googaplazon. You heard it here first, people. It's the combination of a bunch of evil-ass companies.
You should copyright that.
Googaplazon?
Then they'll have to buy it from you.
I should start a company.
Trademark it.
I should start a company called Googaplazon.com. It's an interesting idea. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. He wants Maeve to work for him. He says that he can, she's not part of this world. Her freedom that she gets if he helps her, if she helps him.
Right. She gets to go into a chip or some shit.
Right. Well, she gets to be with her daughter, which is kind of her goal after all. And maybe it doesn't matter to her that it's all inside all fake. A simulation.
What's most important are her memories, right?
Yeah.
That's her life.
Well, but she wants to be with her daughter. In a simulation like that, you can hold your daughter's hand and it feels normal, and
I guess. I don't know.
I mean, it seems to be enough for her to be interested. So he takes her over to Bernard's house. So that's in Singapore, and things start to make sense. We know from Bernard's boat trip that the whole theme park is somewhere in Asia. So I guess it's near Singapore. He takes her to Bernard's house. He talks about a divergence that they sensed or whatever 6 months ago. But what it comes down to is that there were a bunch of bodies made on this bed, and there was a listing of 5 unauthorized bodies being made. I don't know if that includes Dolores making her original body or not. So I have a feeling that it's Dolores and 5 others.
You think Dolores is Dolores?
Well, yes. I think Dolores is Dolores.
No, I mean the original, the OG.
Oh, wait, Dolores can be Dolores because Dolores left the theme park as Charlotte. So why make another Charlotte if you could just remove Charlotte's pearl and transfer it? So
how can she remove it, though, and still have control?
Well, she makes a new body, puts a pearl in that, then takes the pearl out of Charlotte's head. Or no, I guess she wouldn't have to take the pearl out of Charlotte's head. Oh, God. I mean, what we learn in this episode just takes things down kind of a crazy path.
So we know, though, that Charlotte is not the original.
Well, yeah, she can't be the Dolores that stayed at the park because she was confused. We saw her being
made, right?
She was confused, didn't really know what was going on, so maybe popped one pearl out. Do I have to be her? Right, and then put a different pearl, like a freshly imaged version.
I don't understand how she could get it out of one head to the other when you lose all control.
Well, you've seen the heads open up.
No, remember, there's a big old bloody hole.
Well, that's
not what I'm talking about. Once you take your marble out, you're done. You're dead.
Yeah.
So there's no, she wouldn't be able to transfer it. She must be the original.
Maybe if you make two other bodies, two other Doloreses first, and then have one Dolores pop the pearl. There's a way to do this. It's like that thing with the bucket and the stones, and you try to figure out how to... So you need three Dolori walk into a bar, one pops a pearl out of one's head and then out of the other head, and then pops it into the first one's head, and then that's Dolores Prime. And then that Dolores can take over from there and pop all the other pearls into the other heads. Yep. That's got to be what it is. And we still, at this point, did not know what all those pearls were. We knew one of them was Bernard.
Right.
And then this evolves over the course of the episode. In sort of a disappointing way, but we'll come back to that. Okay, so they also have captured an identity broker, some guy that we don't know, but he had something to do with Dolores. He gave her some kind of identity. They torture him. They threaten his family, hollow glasses, blah, blah, blah. He gives up some information. They kill him. The usual. He says he gave Dolores 5 different identities and sent her to the Mortician.
Correct.
And then they kill him. Okay. So Maeve goes into town, into the seedy part of town, and she finds the Mortician. She has to kick some ass to get to the Mortician. But the Mortician is some nice-looking lady who's playing around with dead bodies.
Right. At first you think she's going to be a badass, but really she's just a chicken shit.
Right. I was expecting some hulking beast out of Hostel with a butcher knife.
Ew. Oh my gosh.
We're here to collect the traveling children. But no, it's just some lady who has a morgue looking place.
Well, it's a creepy looking
morgue.
There
are a bunch of bags of blood hanging from the ceiling.
And people.
Well, yeah, I mean, she's messing around with some bodies. Yeah. But the defining feature for me was the bags of blood.
Yeah. Well,
which,
that's what it's
as it turns out, is really important in the future. That's how you store identities. So that's a thing. So after a little more ass kicking, she gets the Mortician to talk, and the Mortician says that she gave this lady, Dolores, the blood of someone named Lara Espin, which was Dolores' cover story in the first episode. But then didn't give her any other identities, just agreed to help her smuggle some bodies out of the area. And they sent her to the Yakuza. So then Maeve goes to the Yakuza shop, hacks her way in, lots of computerized hackety hacks. Fun thing about the future, and I think this is actually a valid, another good dystopian criticism of the future. If you have computerized guns that aim for you, they could be hacked.
Right.
It's just not a good idea. Learn how to use the gun if you're going to carry a gun.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So Dolores has no problem with those guys because they have computerized aiming. Kills a bunch of guys. She almost gets to the boss, has to fight another dude, and in the process of that, stabs through a barrel that is full of Elmer's glue. Delicious.
Right. Interesting, right?
Now, you immediately cued into the fact that it seems like the fluid that they dip the host bodies in.
Right.
We don't know what that fluid does.
It's milk of magnesia.
It's a weird question because if you cut a host, blood comes out, and a lot of blood can come out. Buckets of blood can come out of a host, like we saw with Teddy in season 1.
Right, it's not white.
And it's not white. So what's the white shit, and where does the red blood come from? And I'd love to know how all that works.
They put the blood in afterwards. I think I remember seeing that at some point, them pumping blood in.
There was a pale host at one point, and they started filling it with blood, and then it got color in its skin.
Right. That was when we saw them in the making, I think.
But what is the white stuff?
I don't know. It's like calcium dip.
So there's the barrel of Elmer's glue, and then the Yakuza boss Sato comes out, and it turns out you recognized him before I did. It's Musashi.
Right.
Our friend from season 2, who was in Samurai World, or whatever that place was called. He kills the Mortician. Cool. They starts talking to Maeve. And then this is where there were a lot of back and forth scenes, so we can just summarize this up if I can read my notes properly. We find that, so Maeve says, Dolores brought you out here, but you wanted to stay in the park, so that's kind of weird. And he was all angry at Maeve, and then she realizes it's not really him. And over the course of many jump cuts between different scenes and settings, Maeve figures out that it's Musashi's body, a copy of Musashi's body, of course, that Dolores created out here in the real world.
Right.
Inside the body.
So.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The 5 bodies from the morgue.
Just one body.
But didn't they say 5?
Okay. They said Dolores wanted to smuggle some bodies, but I was thinking those bodies were probably the host that she created at Bernard's house.
I know.
What? She's
smuggling bodies for what?
To get them out of Singapore without identities.
But they're still in Singapore.
Well, one of them is. I don't.
Okay. Maybe we'll find out later.
So Maeve is the one that says, and this is sort of a mystery through the end of the episode, and we've been talking about it for weeks now, Maeve figures out that what's inside Musashi is Dolores, and Dolores made a copy of herself. Maeve only knows about one copy, but we get hints that, what Dolores' whole thing was making a bunch of copies of herself. And that would explain her line from the other week about, you're the only one I can trust.
Oh, yeah.
Dolores can't trust Teddy. She can't trust, who else did we think? Clementine, maybe.
Clementine, right.
Clem's so fucked up. But
I thought it was her.
It could have been,
Who else?
I don't remember who else we had on the suspect list, but it kind of doesn't matter anymore because, of course, Dolores can't trust anybody.
Right.
And Teddy did kind of betray her. I mean, he was being the good guy, but...
Yeah.
He wasn't...
He wasn't all in.
He wasn't all in on all of her plans, but he did legitimately love her, so I hope we see him again someday.
I don't know.
She took his pearl.
She took his pearl.
She took his pearl. She took his heart. So after that, there's a fight. A decent but quick fight. But Maeve loses that fight and gets run through. For all that matters. There's blood everywhere. There's milk everywhere. And then at the very end of that stuff, Maeve is lying dead on the floor, and Sato's people come and tell them they have to get out of there because there's a bunch of armed men outside, which means Maeve was being tracked by Serac. So when she got in trouble, Serac's troops move in to do whatever they're going to do, which I guess means we'll get to see Maeve again. They'll probably fix her. She did kick some ass, but she wasn't tough enough to finish off Dolores. Doloresashi.
She can't be gone. She's the superstar.
Yeah, she'll be back. We'll see her next week. They just got to pump some more milk into her, or blood. Milk and blood.
It's like an Alfredo sauce.
One of those pink sauces. So that's the Maeve plot. I enjoyed it. I love seeing Maeve hurt people. I hate to say it, but
it's kind of fun.
She's just a great...
I don't like it as much from Dolores because she's mean. Maeve seems good, and Dolores seems evil.
Well, and Dolores is so like Dolores is really detached about her violence, I feel like. And then Maeve is detached in a sort of way, but she
won't hurt somebody unless she has to.
Yeah, and she's more like a John Wick.
She doesn't want to hurt good people.
She's really cool about killing the bad guys.
Of course, does Dolores want to hurt good people? I don't know, but she seems like she doesn't care.
Well,
because none of the people that she's with are good.
Well, Bernard is convinced that Dolores is going to do something really bad to all of humanity, but Dolores hasn't clued us into that.
She hasn't said exactly what her plan is.
Well, it seems like Dolores just wants to destroy Rehoboam and set humanity free.
Which would be good.
Which would take down the power establishment that's been holding people down. So that's good for Dolores' goals. It would probably cause a lot of chaos because people aren't used to being free. I'd say that's an okay sacrifice to make, but that's only what we think Dolores' plan is. We don't know all the details. She has a very complicated mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about her. So Dolores, we'll do Dolores and Bernard, and
maybe Dolores has gone back to being what's his name, Wyatt.
Well, I thought about that too. I was thinking maybe the Charlotte Pearl is actually the Wyatt half of Dolores.
That is Dolores.
But then I was thinking Dolores and Wyatt sort of merged together, and that's why Dolores can kick ass. If she was just Dolores, she would be useless. But it's all a copy. They are all Dolores. We are Dolores. Resistance is futile.
Ooh. I just pictured them all saying that, like in the same voice.
That'd be awesome. I hope we get that. We might get that. The cool thing about being a copy of yourself is as long as you can have the technology to make more pearls and bodies, you can't be stopped. It's a very clone. It's like,
right, you just make a new one every time one dies.
Yeah. That can be used for good or bad stories, like the Emperor, fucking Palpatine cloning himself a million billion times, which has happened in the novels that are no longer canon, but then they decided to bring it back for the fucking Last Skywalker or whatever the fuck it's called. Anyway, without getting off on other tangents, let's talk about Dolores and Bernard, their storylines intertwined. There was a whole thing in the beginning where Bernard was remembering him and Dolores at his house, and he was seeing like the pearls, and she was talking to him, but it was all very, very jarring. We didn't get a lot of good information from it. But then they're in Victorville of all places. That's California, right?
Oof, it is a hot motherfucking place.
So Victorville, California. Bernard and Ashley are hanging out in some shithole motel. Ashley mentions having a bad shoulder, which I guess would
the swim.
slow him down in a fight. Well, he had already gotten shot or stabbed or something, but then their swim out from
7 mile swim or something.
Their swim from like Singapore to Victorville must have been rough. So his shoulder's all bad. And we do learn that Bernard has taken that little button of his little car clicker, and it now works on other robots just point at them. Like a remote control.
Little
so he's
remote
able
control, right.
to shut Ashley off and put him into
Will it
maintenance
work on
mode.
Dolores?
They think it will.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think so.
And they mentioned that they were going after Liam and his bodyguard, I think. I wrote down that they were aiming for the Scot, whose name is Connells, but of course I was wrong when I wrote that note down. They were going to go after Liam.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, didn't we see in one of the last episode where somebody was talking to Bernard and they were like, yeah, you thought you made a really cool clicker or something like that. Didn't they already talk about that? Somebody that...
Well, Ashley was watching Bernard use the clicker and was either skeptical or unimpressed.
Somebody who wanted to kill him or something. I don't remember.
Well, there were a couple other clickers. Someone was trying to use one on Maeve and it wasn't working. And then
maybe that's what it
had
was.
the one that he did use on Maeve and it did work.
Oh, yeah. And Bernard was doing that whole check-in thing on himself, self-analysis thing.
Yeah, that was
where
weird.
he had to come in and out of.
Right. He was clicking himself.
That was Dolores. She knows about the clicker.
But it was plugged into him. Now it's wireless.
Okay. Sniff. He's going to... All right, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so they are going after the Scot. Then we see Dolores and Caleb. They are shopping for clothes, fancy clothes. Caleb's not used to that, but he asked what they're up to, and she said they're going after the person who took Caleb's future, which I think would be Rehoboam or maybe Sirach, I guess, but whatever. And we see a scene in Liam's apartment where Connells is getting Liam to sign some piece of paperwork using his thumbprint. And they specifically mention that he's using his hash key, which is an encryption key of some kind. Right. And apparently that can be transmitted through your thumbprint. So there's that. Biometrics, very big in the future. And Connells has to berate him into doing this thing right now because it's important. And it works. Liam does it because he trusts Connells. Ha ha ha. And then we meet a guy named Michael. And Dolores is like, hey, don't you work for that private equity place? And he says yes. So she kicks his ass, knocks him out, takes his blood, and injects his blood into Caleb because your blood also has encryption keys in it.
Right.
So there's that. But it goes away fast.
15 minutes.
You have 15 to 20 minutes or something like that before it's turned to Jell-O. So you have to do whatever you're going to do quickly. And I was fine with them beating up a private equity guy because that shit is just fucking evil. So they do that. They go to RGGR Centennial, which is a form of bank. I wrote that down.
RGGR.
Just in case it's important, I wrote it down, but I'm sure it won't be. The biometric stuff works. They get to this place. They talk to this lady. They're doing a full account withdrawal from Liam's account, whatever that account is. You'd think he'd have more than one account, but this must be his big one.
This is the one Daddy set up for him.
They're taking out all his money and putting it somewhere else. And there's some drama. Dolores is afraid she's going to have to kill everybody, but it works.
It works eventually, right?
The thumbprints both work. Then they go to a masquerade ball. Have you seen the movie Eyes Wide Shut?
No.
Okay.
I've seen Labyrinth.
The masquerade ball. You're right. That was more attended by goblins.
I can picture in my mind the masks that you're talking about in Eyes Wide Shut. It must be a picture that I've seen before.
It's the same kind of scene. And it comes up. There's been a few movies that use this motif, and it makes me wonder if that's just like become a Hollywood trope that the super rich have these crazy masquerades where there's a lot of fucking going on.
Yes.
Or if someone knows something and they're trying to send us a message that this is what the rich really do.
Both.
Could be both. So yeah, they're at a fuck masquerade.
Fun.
Liam meets up with the friends that we met, I think in episode 1. They were hanging out at some business meeting and then Liam had to go, blah, blah, blah. But these people know, quote unquote, Lara. Was that her name?
Lara, right.
Lara Espin.
Trying to get him over
which was Dolores. Yeah, they're saying, it's too bad she died of a drug overdose, but it's time to get back on the horse, and here's a bunch of whores that you can fuck. So go fuck some whores. They're clean. They've all had their shots. Ugh, God. I mean, it might as well be a horse at that point. But Caleb and Dolores are there too. They put on their little masks, and Liam's trying to buy himself some fun, and his accounts get declined. Everything starts getting ugly real fast. And as Liam is off to find Connells, he gets intercepted by Bernard and Ashley. They were not expecting them to be there. They start using the clicker on Liam, being like, go into maintenance mode. And he's not doing it. They thought he was, one of those body snatcher types, that he'd been replaced, but he hadn't.
Nope.
Very Fallout 4.
Why?
The whole thing with synths going into like replacing people in neighborhoods. So you didn't know like your brother could be a synth.
Well, I mean, that's
it's part of our our vision of the dystopian future.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it'll happen? Do you think Googaplazon will send?
I think that people are slowly going to be more and more robot, and eventually people will be like half robot and half human.
Oh, the true singularity when we merge with machines. Mm-hmm. Well, merging with machines would be okay. I'm all for that.
Still have a brain.
I don't want to be killed, like murdered, and then replaced by a machine. That would kind of bum me out.
Well, you wouldn't know.
Well, there would be that instant.
What
I'd
about
be like, oh, that's a bummer. As the lights go out.
Okay, well, glad it wasn't long and drawn out.
I just feel like if that starts happening to us, it's going to be like, I get murdered and replaced by a robot who comes into this house and acts exactly like me in every way, only so that Googaplazon has a better way to get to know you and the kids and sell you guys more shit. They would sacrifice my life to put a robot in place to do more marketing. I think that's what it's all about. Fucking Googaplazon. Right. So there's a big brawl. Ashley and Dolores have a fight. It's pretty good. Well, but Ashley loses. Poor Ashley. People recognize Lara once her mask is off, but it kind of doesn't matter because they're all on drugs. And Liam gets away. Caleb's chasing him. Caleb and Bernard and Connells and Liam all meet up in a dark alley somewhere. And Connells tells Liam to run away. Then tells Caleb to chase Liam. And then he and Bernard have a conversation. And something to the effect of like, Bernard's trying to figure out who Connells is. Who does Dolores trust enough? And Connells chimes in, don't you recognize your oldest friend or something like that. Mm-hmm. 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 Which feeds
Maybe it's Ford. Maybe it's not Dolores.
A Pearl of Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I mean, it could be.
Ford is really Bernard's oldest friend.
But if Maeve is right, then these are all Dolores. It's possible Maeve's not right. It's possible Sato was Dolores, but maybe not all of them are.
Okay, yes.
They could still spin this, but the implication in this episode is that they are all Dolores. And then what else? There really is nothing else. Caleb catches up to Liam, and then he's like, what do you want from me, man?
Leave me alone.
You want money? And he's like, I already have all your money, stupid bitch. And then Dolores comes around the corner, but that's it. Like, we don't see anything else happen.
Yeah.
Yep. Whew. So that just leaves us with old man William.
William is crazy.
There was so much going on with his hallucinations. There's no way I could have taken notes on it all. And not
he was
just
like
because
hallucinating about 5 different things.
Yeah. Did anything was anything memorable enough for you to
Well, there was
us?
it was all about his daughter, his wife, and Dolores.
Did they show his wife?
They didn't show it, but you mentioned, she killed herself in the bathtub.
Right, and then he was in a bathtub.
And then there was the water dripping from the ceiling and the blood.
I'm not even sure if he was really in the bathtub or not. Like, he wakes, there's water dripping on his face, blood dripping on his face, and then the ceiling caves in, but then he's in a bathtub, and then he's all wet.
I think he was in the bathtub. And then his daughter's
talking to him. Emily is her name.
Was he dry?
Right? I don't know. There was just a lot happening.
Yeah, there was. And then he's shooting everywhere.
Yes, he was starting to shooting
things. His house.
That's right.
And then in comes Charlotte.
Yeah. Charlotte comes in and gets him to put the gun down. But yeah, it was a crazy few minutes. Before Charlotte came in, his daughter was sort of hitting on him, asking, like, he says he's in control, and she's basically saying, like, are you in control, or is this all code? Is it all programmed? And before Charlotte interrupted, he was about to cut his arm open too to see if there was circuits inside. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure, for the record, the dude had both hands the whole time.
I'm pretty sure too.
Yeah. There's a reason for that. Well, if you've seen the episode, you might have already noticed.
We should double check.
But there is one note I took as I was watching him freak out, and I was watching him say, like, he's in control, and the question of whether or not he's a robot is basically what he's trying to figure out, right? But it's all about him being in control. And I had a little flashback in my head to season 1, and I'm pretty sure it was Ashley, who we now know is a robot, and Ashley knows who all the robots are. And in season 1, when the Man in Black was causing all sorts of chaos in the park, someone asked if they should deploy a team to stop whatever he was doing.
Right.
And Ashley said, I'm pretty sure I got this quote right, that man can do whatever he wants.
Right.
Now, it could just be because Ashley knows that he's William, that he's a member of the board of Delos. He's like the most powerful guy at Delos.
That's what we thought.
But maybe it was that he also knows William is a robot, and there's no reason to fuck with him because he's just doing what his code says. He's part of the story, basically.
Interesting.
So I just wonder if Ashley always knew.
Well, is he really a robot?
William?
Yes.
I don't know. I am sure that we saw robot parts, like when he cut open his arm. In season 2, I'm pretty sure we saw robot parts. But he could have been hallucinating that. Dude's fucking crazy now. He has lost it.
Maybe it's all a dream.
But there was the stinger at the end of season 2 where he was in that room and he was having that
fidelity check,
the fidelity test. So he's got to be a robot.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. And wasn't Charlotte the one that was doing it? Who was doing it?
No, it was Emily.
His daughter.
Which then brings into question of whether or not she was a synth when he killed her in the park, or a host when he killed her in the park, or if that was a host version of Emily, or if he's just hallucinating the whole fucking thing. There's really no way to tell.
Maybe he's on heroin.
Does heroin make you hallucinate?
Yes.
Okay.
Think so, anyway.
We should ask Caleb, because Jesse Pinkman was a heroin addict for a while.
Or Jesse.
I never watched his follow-up movie, did you?
Yes.
Was it good?
It was good.
What was
I liked
called? Like
some closure.
El Camino or something?
Yes, I think it was. I liked the closure, and it was light. It was a little more lighthearted.
Oh, good. He deserves that. Okay, so this leads to a whole thing of William and Charlotte. Oh, Charlotte comes in. She stops him from fucking shooting everything. So they have a long conversation. And the big note that I took from it was this new mystery called Sector 16. The data about Sector 16. And they both seem to have an interest. Well, William especially. We know Charlotte's not really Charlotte, but William has a deep interest in keeping whatever Sector 16 was secret. So what is that? Is that the whole thing where they were harvesting DNA? Or is it something else?
I don't know.
Because that would be a big secret.
I honestly don't remember them talking about Sector 16.
Well, I wrote it down, so it's got to be real.
Must be too. Maybe they said something completely different.
No, it was
sex when you're 16.
That would be quite a twist if that's what the show was really all about. Turns out Westworld was all about lowering the age of consent. It's really weird. I don't know what to make of these guys now. And William's first thing is like, Charlotte tells him that there's a mole, that Serac knows what's going on, the whole takeover thing. And he's all about finding the mole, which we know is Charlotte. So she's already trying to talk him down from that and being like, we just need to take this company private. We need your votes. You need to come to the board meeting, yada, yada, yada. So they go through a thing. He's shaving. He finally gets himself cleaned up. He's wearing a suit. He looks kind of skinny.
He does.
Yeah. I don't know if that's on purpose or not, but he does look a little different. Mm-hmm. But he's pretty again. He gets all cleaned up.
Right. His shirt before was like green, yellow. It was gross.
There were a lot of fluids splashing around all over that house. He's still, even though he's clean and says everything's fine, and he's looking in a mirror and tidying up his suit and everything, and he seems to be acting like his old self. He then has another vision of his daughter, again, questioning the nature of reality and having a fight with him. And then when he comes outside, Charlotte asks him about his hallucinations because she's been listening in.
Maybe she gave him those hallucinations if he's indeed a robot.
If he's a robot and she's a robot, yes, she could have programmed psychosis into him, I suppose. Hacked him.
Or made the appearance of his daughter. Made him.
Maybe she's really there.
Maybe.
That could be too. She could really be a host.
I don't think so, though.
You don't think so? Okay. That would be a fun trick to play, though.
She would have seen Charlotte.
Well, not if she's programmed not to. If Charlotte planted that robot in there to fuck with William's head, then
I see. It's just a robot that she planted, not just a.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe or maybe not.
I don't think so.
And he's confronting her about how she's spying on him, and he's like, "Who are you, man?" And she's like, "Don't you recognize your oldest friend?" Another one of those kind of lines. Again, implying probably Dolores.
Or Ford.
Or maybe Ford. Yeah, that's possible.
Although Logan would be his oldest friend.
I thought about that. Because Logan's in the system.
Maybe it's all Logan.
Logan would be a great ruthless sidekick, but...
Did he die?
Yeah, he died of like a heroin overdose.
Right.
Yeah.
In the lawn chair.
Yeah. Or shortly thereafter.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it could be Logan. I would not...
He probably had a pearl. Or they could make a pearl.
They could make a pearl of him for sure. Yeah. But could Dolores trust him? Probably not.
No. He didn't like Dolores so much.
So the implication is still that it's another copy of Dolores, that there's so many Dolori. And it turns out that this was all a setup. He's not actually going to a board meeting. He's being committed. By
Weird.
Very nicely dressed men.
She could have just had those guys go in.
Well, he got a gun.
They took hours to get him dressed and just get it over with.
That's true. And by having him committed, all of his votes on the board will go to the acting CEO or whatever, which is Charlotte. So that happens. Now they inject him with some kind of sedative, which if he's a robot, would that work?
Right.
Well,
I guess they get drunk and stuff. So
yeah,
Teddy or not Teddy. I keep calling Ashley Teddy. Ashley is drinking a lot of beer.
That's true. He wanted beer.
Kind of weird. Maybe he's like Bender.
Pee later, right? He's an alcohol-powered robot.
Yeah, he has to have alcohol. He runs on alcohol. If
that's anyone, that's got to be Dolores because she wants to kill all humans, just like Bender. But the weird thing at the end there was that, and they zoomed in on it, so they wanted us to see it, was that as Charlotte's saying goodbye to him, she has a little sharp thing on her ring, and she pricks his neck, and a drop of blood comes out.
Right. We saw that somewhere else in this series.
Did we?
We did. I don't remember when, but I do remember seeing...
Maybe it's going to be a cloning thing. Maybe they're going to make a replicant William.
Well,
do they need his blood for that?
Don't need that.
He's already in the system. Oh, if that was human William, and there's never actually been a replicant William, which I doubt, but if there was, then maybe they need a drop of his blood to pull out some of his info. I don't know.
Crazy.
Maybe they're taking his biometrics, except that only lasts for 20 minutes. So shit if I know, but they wanted us to see that.
I think there's 2 Williams.
That's
the crazy William.
Definitely a possibility.
And then the William that's wherever he was in the end.
Right. So that brings us to the final scene, which is the most confusing part. And before we talk about the really confusing part, it seems that William now is suddenly, he's in an asylum. He's wearing white. He's the man in white now. And Dolores is there. Probably a hallucination. She disappears at the end, right?
I don't know.
I think she vanishes at the end. So she's another hallucination, but it's Dolores in like her cornflower blue dress that we know her from.
Yes, she vanishes.
And she tells him that Emily's last wish was him in an institution, locked up and unable to hurt anybody else.
Mm-hmm. So sweet.
She says he's reached the center of his maze, which kind of implies he's a robot. But ultimately, he has the question he wants to ask her. She says, ask it. And he says, am I me? And she doesn't give him an answer. She just says, welcome to the end of the game. So what do you think that means?
I don't even know. She all along, I don't know. I mean, on the surface, it's like now you are locked up. So ha ha ha.
I guess. But
there's more to it, of course.
Season 2 was heavily centered, at least the first half of season 2, was all about William having to play this new game that Ford put in before his death, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't even remember what it was. Was William supposed to find the door, or was that just Dolores' quest? William was looking for something. He was supposed to be finding something. It was all a new game. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that we ever reached a satisfying conclusion of that. But it all just got weird at the end. And, was William a robot? Was William not? That became the real focus of William's storyline. So... Well, okay, so here's the thing. As you just said, maybe there's 2 Williams. And maybe there is, because the biggest thing that we noticed from that scene, and they didn't seem to be trying to hide it, it seemed kind of obvious.
Right, it seemed like they were trying to show it.
Right, that William, the man in white, had a fucked up, hand, like a prosthetic.
Yeah, like a pot holder hand.
Like a really bad prosthetic hand. Like, clearly not, this is the future. They got good shit.
Right, they can make robots.
It just looked like it was like
send them back to the...
Yeah.
Oven.
Well, yeah, do a Luke Skywalker on him. Get one of those really cool looking hands that has all the gears and servos in it.
Which kind of makes you think that maybe that must be the real William if they didn't bother giving him a real hand. Wait.
Jesus.
God.
Okay, so whatever William is, his hand got blown up at the end of season 2. His gun backfired. Dolores rigged his gun to backfire. And it blew off his hand.
Right. And all through this whole episode, he has 2 hands.
I feel very sure about that because at one point he's like adjusting his collar in the mirror.
He's shooting guns.
And he's shooting guns and yeah. I mean, you could shoot with the other hand, but yeah.
We would have seen it.
But his gun hand was the one that blew off.
We're going to go back and review.
We can, but
quick.
I am sure when he was looking in the mirror and adjusting his clothes one last time, I'm 100% sure he had 2 hands.
Okay, well, after we end, we're going to go review. Okay, and then we'll
go review.
If it's different, we will come back and tell you. And if it's not, then if he has the fake hand, then...
then we lock this and we post it. So if he had 2 hands and then all of a sudden he only has 1 hand, then either you're right and there's 2 Williams, or he was hallucinating the hand, which could be why he wasn't able to shave himself. He was having a hard time shaving, and Charlotte wound up shaving him.
You're right. Charlotte wound up shaving him.
Charlotte shround up shaving him.
You're right. And then when he went to wipe off the razor, she gave it back to him. He went to wipe off the razor, although it did seem like it was with the same hand that was supposed to be fake. He wiped it, and he was kind of like annoyed or something. I was like, what, is your shaving gross? But he was like, he grimaced and I don't know, acted like...
Damn. We are going to have to take another look at that, aren't we?
Yep.
Which hand was he firing a gun with in his house when he's being a crazy person? Was his right hand or his left hand? His right hand is the one that got blown off.
I don't know.
All right, well, we'll go verify. But for now, I'm going to say I mean, I'm going to say he had two hands. Like, we saw him with two hands. But
right.
Yeah,
we saw him with two hands.
We're not going to be able to, if we're right, and we don't have to come back and do more recording. If we're right and he had two hands and then all of a sudden he had one hand, then
there's two. Or he's hallucinating.
It's two Williams or it's a hallucination. We're not going to get an answer to that right now. That's not going to happen. But
did we see him in the previews?
I don't think so. Week? It looks like next week's episode is focused mostly on Dolores blowing shit up.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's hard to say for sure, but
yeah. Well, let's go find out.
Okay. Well, unless we come back, let's just do a sign off now, and then if we have to come back, I'll erase that sign out, and then we'll redo a different sign.
Okay.
All right. So over the next few days, we'll do another recording in just a couple days anyway. But I'm going to keep an eye out. I want you guys to keep an eye out for Gugaplazon warning signs. That's your homework. Mm-hmm. I would like to hear stories. You can email them to me, jeff@potofthrones.com, or you could email them to Jennifer.
At Jennifer@potofthrones.com.
Mm-hmm. Or you could always reach us on Twitter. I am at Pot of Thrones.
And I'm at Kid Free Weekend.
Mm-hmm. So hit us up.
Right.
We want to know Gugaplazon stories, coronavirus stories. If you live in Georgia, tell us what you think of Brian Kemp.
Have you been laid off?
Let's talk, people. Let's talk. We'd be happy to talk to anybody.
Everybody stay safe and
stay safe, stay healthy.
Yeah, don't touch things.
Wash your hands.
Yeah. It's crazy out there.
Yeah, it really is.
Good night, everybody.
Okay, I know I said I was going to edit together a new ending or whatever the fuck, but I don't have time for that. Look, we went back and we watched the scenes with William again, and here's how it went down. They were all different.
Kind of.
In the scene, well, if you look closely, in the scene in the beginning where he's freaking out and he's hallucinating and he's in the bathtub and he's all wet and shit, he has a hand. Right. It's clearly visible. He even pushes himself off the floor with it. He's only using his left hand with the gun. Mm-hmm. His right hand he's not using for anything, but he did brace himself and push himself off the floor, and you could see his hand.
Right. So either that was a mess up by editing, or he was either hallucinating, which he was.
Right. Well, we thought
he was hallucinating that he still had a hand, or it was a flashback.
Oh. I guess there could be flashbacks involved in his crazy visions. But then later when he's shaving, he was only using his left hand. He only used his left hand for anything.
And he had his right hand bandaged in that one.
Right. It was wrapped up a little bit, but I swear to God, in season 2, his hand was just blown up, I thought. Maybe I'm misremembering.
Well, I mean, I don't know that they showed it blown up.
Yeah. Maybe not. But in any case, he was bandaged up a little bit, but it looked like most of his hand was kind of, more or less intact.
Right.
And then later on, he had a black glove on when he was leaving. Mm-hmm. And then finally in the asylum or whatever.
Well, it could be one of those things now. I've been watching Tiger King, and there's a woman who got her arm torn off. And for the first couple days, I don't know how long, but she had it bandaged and she could still use her hand and everything, but it was fucked up and they ended up amputating it. So maybe it's something like that.
Well, but at this point, it's been a few months since the massacre at the park.
I don't know. Nerve damage.
Yeah. I know.
Who knows? Who knows when it really is?
And right, it could all still be in his head. Or maybe because he's a robot, he couldn't just go to a normal human doctor and get his hand fixed, and that's why it's still fucked up.
Right, that's the most confusing thing. Because he's a robot, why isn't it easy just to get it fixed? Because he's not in the park?
Exactly.
He can't just go to Delos and say, fix my hand?
Well, no, because he doesn't know he's a robot.
But if he was a robot, wouldn't he realize his hand, wouldn't he have... He would have a robot skeleton.
Well, 1, he's gone crazy. And 2, he can't see things that would hurt him.
Oh.
And if he can't accept that he is a robot, then he would not be able to see his robot fingers.
Gotcha. Okay, I guess. But also, do they have robot fingers? Because when you look at the intro, they're putting to milk fibers. That's all milk fiber.
still looks like human skeleton, kind of.
We have seen Dolores with her titanium
mesh body.
Skeleton.
Yeah, but not the limbs. That's more
not
of a
the
torso
limbs.
thing.
But we don't see any. Who knows? This stupid show is so frustrating.
Yeah. Well, in any case, that's what we saw. It was a different hand. He never used his right hand for anything, but his hand looked different or was differently covered in every single scene. So there you go. All right. Now we're going. Bye.
All right. Good night again.
Bye.